retirement. We can quit our work when we had the perfect policies in place. Well, this is a policy, if it works, that gets us towards these other larger goals of reducing our greenhouse gas emissions and yada, yada, yada. Small businesses, and you'll hear more about this from John here in a minute, but my way of saying this is you've got more jobs. You've got more money flowing in the local economy. You've got more green money flowing, if you will. What's happening right now, this will lead us into more, that's the background of what happened last year and what P.A.C.E. is, and we're about to get into the real life of what's happening right now with P.A.C.E. Well, we passed this policy, and by gosh, we were grinning, wow, we got something done. It all happened in the last couple hours of session. It's this big story I'll tell you over a beer sometime if you want to really hear the details of how it got passed. Making policies like making sausage, and it was Abraham Lincoln that said that. It's a big, ugly process, but this is actually a success story where we had a policy that came out clean, successful. We were proud of ourselves. Well, it just so happened that this big mess happened at the federal level where Freddie Mae and Fannie Mae somehow declared that they didn't really want to support this experimental technology of insulation in your attic. They didn't really know if it would really reduce your electric bills or whatnot, and it's way above us, right? It's at the federal level, it's in D.C., and is timing-wise just kind of strange that it worked this way. So we passed, we made Missouri, what, the 27th state, I think, to get a P.A.C.E. policy in place. Off to the races. We go, oh no, there's this federal mess where the Freddie Mae and Fannie Mae was financed somewhere around 90% of all home mortgages in the state. So we don't like P.A.C.E., so we're not going to give you a loan for your property if you use it. So the result of that, and you'll probably hear more from these guys here in a minute, but from my perspective, the result of that is right now the residential programs for P.A.C.E., so imagine in your house, is not happening right now. There are some things to be worked out federally, and they're being worked out federally, but there's nothing in the way of these programs going forward right now on a commercial level, and an industrial level. Freddie Mae and Fannie Mae only make loans for homes up to $750,000, I think. So there's a lot of opportunity beyond that, and these clean energy development boards that are set up are geography-based. So if you have one for Columbia, if you have one for Boone County, or if you have one for this region, and they get going on these commercial programs, then they're already there as soon as this mess gets cleared up federally, so we can move forward to the residential programs first. So my message is let's get going in Columbia. Let's get this off the ground. Let's get the program up and going. Because by golly, Jeff City is way ahead of us, and I'm embarrassed. Okay. If you want to write these resources down, there are places where you can go find a lot more resources. And I actually have, I brought 3 copies with me of this P.A.C.E. implementation guide, which you can also see on the website. But if anybody wants one, I'll leave them up here. A lot of hours went into creating this implementation guide. So if you've got some really detailed questions, I can almost guarantee the answers are in this. I've got 3 of them, so feel free to come and take one of these at the end of the presentation. And if you don't get one, then you can go on our website and you can download one. Question, Molly?
So did you say homeowners can get P.A.C.E. financing now, or no?
Not. There is no such thing as residential P.A.C.E. because of this mess in D.C. That will get cleared up by someone sometime, probably none of us, but there's a lot of people working on it, and as soon as that does get, I guarantee it'll get cleared up because it's a ridiculous concept. It's not experimental technology, solar panels and insulation in your attic. But in the meantime, there's no reason to just go home and forget about it. We might as well get these clean energy development boards set up. Take a couple more questions, and then I'll pass it off to John because he could probably answer a lot of the questions that are already out there, and I'll be here on a panel to answer some more questions too. In the back?
I heard what you said, but I just want to, even if you own your home or it's not financed by Freddie Mac, you still can't make it nothing to pay. I don't see how they would have the right to tell you what to do. But
I'll punt to that because that discussion is its whole own thing. Why? It's not our fault. I'll tell you that much. Nobody in this room or in this state. But one more question, Dick, and then I'll sit down. Did you have a question, Dick?
It was the same question.
Okay, great. We'll get back to that one. John Harris is from the banking institution, and from Renew Missouri standpoint, we want to get the good policies in place. But if we get them in place and no one does anything with them, it's a big waste of time. So I was happy to meet John. He came to an info session we gave kind of like this in the Capitol about this time last year. I said, well, what are you doing here? He said, well, I work for a bank, and I think maybe if this works, then we're going to actually, maybe we get involved in this. So he's going to walk through. Actually, your presentation is better than mine. He's going to show you some maps that will make it easier for you to understand. I got your presentation you gave yesterday on here. And you can use it. Yeah, so I'd like to invite you to come up, and he'll fill you in on lots of the holes in the story that I didn't find.
marching orders.
Sorry. Yeah. John, do you want to use this?
I could probably find parts of it that would be
You have
helpful.
some great slides. If you just want to say,
So you want John to speak now?
Yeah.
Or, okay, now,
yeah, go ahead.
well, I was just going to freeform this. And
Yeah.
Now, this idea about property owners, policy people, everybody property owners, yes?
Yes.
Anybody policy, governmental? Yeah? Okay, home. All right. So I'm going to make this all sort of right to the point. This mechanism, this authority that we've been given, does what PJ says, and that is that at the end of the day, I want to do a retrofit to my property to help me reduce energy use. Right? So energy use translates to dollars spent, in my mind, and so if I can make sense to myself that I should install this stuff in the attic, or that the new heater or whatever uses energy, because I get a repayment, I can calculate the repayment. It makes sense to me. Then the point of P.A.C.E. is that it supports that notion in the interest of energy efficiency. So what it does is it provides for a funding mechanism, is all, to private property owners, not government entities or something which we usually expect from municipal funding, but private property owners, because it's in the public interest. All right. So I own a house, I own a little business, I own a factory, whatever, private property, energy use, so I can have access to funding to do this thing that I figured out is good for me. Got cash flow to it, and I can finance something theoretically up to a 20-year period of time. So that's what it's all about. That's all it is. And if I can just, I'm making a guess here, but to me, this is a gift, ultimately from the federal government that's given us this authority. And the federal government is, my supposition is, because there's no evidence, but my supposition is the federal government finally got tired, and the state government too, but finally has gotten to the point where they're tired of giving and gifting and trying to assist people through subsidies to do what they should do. And they want to get out of business. And so what they've done is essentially they've said, okay, we're going to give you this mechanism that's already used for other public purposes, but we're going to give you this mechanism for the purpose of reducing energy use in the country, and we're going to get out of business, because this mechanism uses private capital. That's how it works. Right? So we have private capital, which is happy to participate in this. And why does private capital participate in this program? It's because there's interest to be made, there's interest costs for these borrowings. So private capital is forever. It's never ending. And that's what makes the program sort of make sense for everybody. And it's now, if we get to a scale that works in terms of dollars, where we have enough people doing these kinds of projects to their own property, in their own interest, then you reach this, this wonderland called sustainability. Now we have, anytime Mrs. Jones is ready to do her thing, it's like McDonald's, and it's just a market sort of thing. It works, right? So that's the whole idea. And the reason that private capital is interested in this is because the P.A.C.E mechanism provides a first lien, or first tax lien, on the property that the improvement is attached to until it's paid off, right? That's why PJ was uttering, the Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, because these are the mortgage buyers in the market who may not be with us much longer, but who have thrown a monkey wrench into the P.A.C.E program. Now, the dire prediction that residential assistance will not be available is not entirely the case. Certainly, these programs will start mostly with commercial projects that are ready to go. But there are P.A.C.E programs in the country who are continuing to do residential programs. And we're endeavoring right now to work out that particular problem in Missouri with First Clean Energy Development Board. Now I'll say something else just to give you an idea of how this thing is to be formed. Yes, we've heard Jefferson City, Halo, has indeed authorized the state's first Clean Energy Development Board. And the board members have been appointed, and the first meeting of the Clean Energy Development Board is next Thursday, I believe. And so this first board has been established. They are going to organize themselves next week, and they will be in a position to begin the program, begin funding. All right? They have to set their rules and their operating procedures and so on. So that may take just a little bit of work, but essentially it's done. Okay. Now I'm going to put my finger right there. Could we advance this? Sure. Now I'm going to say something here. P.A.C.E. Is everybody excited about P.A.C.E. now? Okay. P.A.C.E. will not work in Missouri. P.A.C.E. will not work for any community in Missouri. How about that? Is that shocking? Let me show you why. Keep going.
But don't walk out now.
Yeah, that's shocking. Keep going. Oh, go to see a map or something. No, not that. Not that. Not that. No. Hey, oh, okay. Okay. Now, so I live over here in Callaway County, little town. I live out in the woods, and so I get in the car and I go down Highway 70 and I go to 270, and can you visualize that? Now you're in town, right? Because you got these big shiny buildings and big houses and shopping centers and all this stuff, and you go, my gosh, I'm in town. This town, whatever it is, can afford to do a P.A.C.E. program by themselves. They can do the P.A.C.E. program because it's Creve Coeur,
See, that's big shiny.
So, but then you look at the Census Bureau report, and it says owner-occupied housing units, Creve Coeur, of that 5,000. It's under 5,000 houses. Okay, well, I'm going to make sense of that. So the way you fund these things is with bonds, ultimately, with municipal bonds to fund these things to the private market. People buy bonds.